Previews of Borderlands 4 hinted at a return to form for this beloved franchise, and I found my roughly 3 hours quite promising so far. Something that's also promising is how you can count on Randy Pitchford's ex-Twitter responses to players complaining about Gearbox games to be entertaining and controversial. But that's nothing I'll discuss here, because we only care about benchmarks and want to see how the Penguin fares against the monstrosity from Redmond. Borderlands 4 is yet another Unreal Engine 5 game that was released this year, and it won't be the last. The Outer Worlds 2 will also use Epic's graphics tech. I seriously lost count of how many UE5 games I already checked out. The following table lists the hardware I tested with. I ran only a single benchmark pass per graphics preset, as I chose a run that covered a large area in the starting location and lasted approximately 3 minutes. This should provide a good enough average to even out any dips or spikes. Since I measured 5 different presets on 2 operating systems, I limited my testing to the native 1440p resolution. And if we're being honest, the game is too heavy for 4K without performance level upscaling anyway. My benchmark took me in a loop from Claptrap Speech to a small enemy camp, across the country past aggressive wildlife, and through another small and big enemy camp with a lot of foes blasting their bullets at me. I believe this benchmark pass covered a wide variety of scenarios players will encounter in the game. Therefore, it should provide good data for performance in general, as well as when comparing Linux to Windows. Ignoring how heavy Borderlands 4 actually is, the scaling is very similar to what I've seen in other Unreal Engine 5 games. The lower the frame rate, like at very high, Linux and Windows are very close, only 3 to 4 frames per second separate the two. Once we get to the high preset, Windows starts to pull ahead, and at the medium preset, Windows 11 dominates Linux. I skipped Badass because its performance would be unplayable, and I skipped Low because it's ugly and nobody should use it if their hardware allows. In addition to the in-game presets, I also tested with the Hardware Unboxed optimized settings, which can be found either in their video or in written form on the TechSpot website. Both links are in the video description. I strongly recommend watching Tim's video on the subject so that you can see the visual difference. My benchmark footage running in the background is based on the high performance settings. Comparing Linux and Windows shows what I already suspected. When the frame rate is in the playable range around 60 FPS, Windows leads by approximately 10 frames per second. The higher the FPS counter goes, the further Windows can extend its lead. I included these presets because Tim's work was top notch and renders the in-game presets essentially useless. I recommend you take a look and try them for yourself. Borderlands 4 has a heap of options to tune, which was atypical compared to the other UE5 games I tested. Normally, I'd recommend starting with the high preset in Unreal 5 games and then increasing the texture and lighting quality. This simple approach does not really help in Borderlands 4. Please note that my results are only representative of AMD GPUs. Using an NVIDIA graphics card might produce wildly different numbers. Out of curiosity, I pulled up my Mafia the Old Country benchmarks to have a look at how another recently released Unreal Engine 5 game performed. And to be honest, Mafia looked a lot better, by a huge margin. Borderlands 4 doesn't look bad per se, but its art style makes it hard to justify the performance we see. At the high preset, Mafia achieved an average of 71 FPS on Linux. That is faster than Borderlands 4's high result on Windows 11, which was 64 frames per second. Mafia even managed a high refresh rate experience using the medium preset by averaging 91 FPS on Windows at native resolution. Even using AMD's most recent high-end GPU requires upscaling at 1440p to enable a high refresh rate-like level of performance comfortably. If you want to know how almost any GPU in existence performs in this title, I direct you once more to Hardware Unboxed. Steve tested an insane number of graphics cards. Link is in the video description. As a core comfort, at least on Windows you can enable FSR4 upscaling right from the get-go, as it's desperately required. That's all I have for you. Please consider doing all the YouTube stuff. Thank you for watching.